Bonsoir, welcome. You're watching Eye on Africa with me, Clarisse Fortuné. Coming up on the program. Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye is fighting for his life in a Kampala hospital after collapsing dramatically in court. His family and lawyers blame harsh detention conditions and political persecution. His latest hospitalization is reigniting concerns over Uganda's treatment of opposition voices. Ghana backs 5-year presidential terms as part of a sweeping constitutional reform program that could reshape elections and political eligibility. Proposed reforms also moves to lower presidential age to 35 and permit dual citizens in parliament. Benin is pushing for the return of 35 additional artworks and colonial archives from France. The move builds on recent restitutions and comes as France introduces a new law designed to speed up the return of cultural heritage looted during the colonial period. A dramatic collapse in court has left Uganda's most prominent opposition figure in critical condition. Kizza Besigye's family and lawyers blame harsh detention conditions and political persecution. Now facing treason charges and a possible death sentence, his latest hospitalization is reigniting concerns over the treatment of government critics. Aurore Bayou has more.
Ugandan opposition figure Kizza Besigye remains in intensive care at Mulago National Referral Hospital in Kampala. According to his wife, the executive director of UNAIDS, Winnie Byanyima, he is unconscious, unable to speak and unresponsive to painful stimuli. Hospital sources say his condition is critical. During a court hearing on Wednesday, Besigye suddenly collapsed in the dock after refusing to accept state-appointed lawyers. Two members of his own legal team had been prevented from representing him. One was arrested, the other barred from entering Uganda. Moments before collapsing, he denounced what he called the government's abuse of the constitution. His lawyers say these are the signs of a deliberate campaign to wear him down and force a confession. His wife has repeatedly denounced the conditions of his detention, describing a tiny, overcrowded cell infested with bedbugs and warning that his life was at risk. It is the third time Besigye has been hospitalized since his arrest. Abducted in Kenya in 2024, he now faces the death penalty on treason charges. His collapse has reignited concerns over the treatment of political opponents in Uganda, where critics say the space for dissent continues to shrink.
The government in Ghana has put up new laws seeking to extend presidential term limits from the current 4 to 5 years. The proposal is part of a raft of sweeping changes that would also now allow dual citizens to be eligible to stand for parliament. The proposals have sparked debate in Ghana over the country's democracy. From Accra, here is our correspondent, Justice Baidu.
The new changes to Ghana's constitutions are part of a raft of new proposals put forward by a committee put together by President John Mahama in 2025. Ghana is a model on the African continent and is one of 8 star democracies. Many of the country's past leaders have argued that the 4-year mandate is not enough, as presidents are left with less than 3 years to govern, as the last year in office are always disrupted by election campaigns in the 4th year.
For me, I think it's a perfect thing. When I heard about it, I was like, this is good, because it will give governments more time to implement policies and also development plans. And then every promise that they give, they should make sure they do it when they get the power.
I don't think 5 years is a good idea. Even 4 years, you are suffering. So 5 years is too much. We are even thinking of decreasing it to 1 year. So 5 years there is not a good idea at all.
There had been speculations that these constitutional review amendments were part of a bigger plot by President Mahama to force through a possible 3rd term, which he currently doesn't qualify for. As part of these reviews, there's a proposal also for local council heads to be elected rather than appointed by a sitting president. These proposals would now have to be put forward for a referendum in which majority of Ghanaians have to vote in support for them to come into force.
Several African nations met in Uganda's capital to discuss the future of the African Union Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia. The US announced it will withdraw its funding from the mission, which has the objective of fighting against Al-Shabaab. Our correspondent Tom Kennedy is in the Somali region and spoke to one refugee who fled Al-Shabaab's persecution.
What will be the future of the African Union stabilizing mission in Somalia after the 31st of December, the date that the United States has designated as the end of their funding towards this mission? That's the question that everyone here in the Somali region is asking themselves. I visited the Shede refugee camp on the border of Somalia and Ethiopia that welcomes 15,000 refugees, Somalian refugees who have fled violence. I spoke to Ahmed, who fled his village after Al-Shabaab came and forcibly recruited his brother. For security reasons, we've decided to keep his interview anonymous.
Al-Shabaab has done evil things, forcibly displacing people, killing them, slaughtering them. Al-Shabaab is the cancer of Somali society. The African Union and international community must continue the fight against them until we are safe to go home. We've been living as refugees for too long. We need a durable solution and to return home.
About 12,000 foreign troops from 5 countries in the region are fighting in Somalia, all against Al-Shabaab. The United States has contributed more than $1.6 billion to stabilizing missions in Somalia since 2007.
Benin is intensifying its campaign to reclaim cultural treasures taken during the colonial era. After securing the return of 26 royal artifacts from France 5 years ago, the West African nation is now seeking 35 more works, along with access to colonial archives. A new French law could make future restitutions significantly easier. Emmanuel Soji explains.
This sculpture, dedicated to the Vodou Gu, deity of iron and war, is one of the Dahomean pieces Benin wants back. It is currently on display at the Pavillon des Sessions, the Quai Branly museum space inside the Louvre. The list also includes a divination table, a rifle, a banner, and royal swords kept in the museum storage rooms. There are also ammunition pouches, a knife, and tunics worn by the Amazons, the women warriors who defended the kingdom.
I want the objects that belong to the Amazons to come back. They are part of the memory of these women warriors who died fighting the colonizers.
The objects left Abomey in 1892, when troops under General Tods looted the capital.
During the colonial period, these works were looted and taken by force.
Benin is also asking for colonial records documenting the conquest and how the kingdom was governed.
Benin wants to access the archives of the colonial governors who knew about them, so we can find out how they were taken.
There's been a change in how France handles these returns. Under a new law that came into force on May 9, 2026, each restitution no longer needs a separate vote in Parliament as it did in 2021. Instead, a decree is enough, following advice from a joint French-Beninese scientific committee. The 27 treasures returned so far all came from the Kingdom of Dahomey. The new list also includes objects from Ketu, Save, and Porto Novo.
They won't be used for rituals anymore. They become objects on display, pieces that showcase Benin's artistic talent and heritage.
A national scientific committee was set up in Cotonou in July, working with the Joint French-Beninese Commission. Beninese experts estimate at least 15,000 more objects belonging to Benin are held in collections around the world, both public and private. They say all of them were taken from the country during the colonial period.
And here in Paris, the Azzedine Alaïa Foundation is shining a spotlight on the African roots of the renowned Tunisian fashion designer. Born in Tunis, Azzedine Alaïa never stopped drawing inspiration from his home continent. He passed away in 2017, but remains the first African designer to join the prestigious Paris Haute Couture calendar. Our Diouf caught up with the curator.
It's an exhibition that we hesitated to organise for many years, but one that we ultimately felt that we had to do because Azzedine Alaïa was Tunisian, and the theme of African inspiration recurred throughout his work. What inspired Azzedine wasn't really a folkloric vision of Africa, rather it was a sensitivity to Africa, a sensitivity to its colours. For example, when he encountered the Maasai, he was captivated by the vibrant red fabrics that the men wrapped themselves in. It was almost as if they draped themselves in a colour before draping themselves in a garment. Mr. Alaïa's bandage dresses, which have become true icons of 20th century fashion, were directly inspired by Egyptian mummies. He was deeply fascinated by the art of mummification, and these bandage dresses are perhaps the clearest expression in the exhibition of his fascination with Egypt.
Azzedine Alaïa, who inspired so many designers, ending our program. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for watching Eye on Africa on France 24.